So lesson 7.4 is on classifying quadrilaterals and then finding missing angle measures in a quadrilateral. Now a quadrilateral means as it is a shape or figure that has four sides, okay? Quad means four. So on all of these objects today, we are going to be working with objects that have four sides with them, okay? So our most broad term that kind of contains everything we're working with today, like I said, is a quadrilateral. Now I have this little diagram, all right, that kind of tells what each of our special name four-sided shapes are, okay? So a quadrilateral kind of contains everything underneath it. So if it is a four-sided shape, it is automatically a quadrilateral, okay? All right, now bracketing off of this quadrilateral, I have a trapezoid, parallelogram, and a kite, okay? A trapezoid, and what makes something a trapezoid is it has one pair of parallel lines. So these little arrows indicate that that line and that line are parallel. It means if they continue to run on and on, they would never touch. Now I have this line and this line, they are not parallel, they are gonna cross or intersect somewhere up here, okay? So if it's a trapezoid, it has one pair of parallel lines, okay? Now it doesn't really have anything bracketed off underneath, so a trapezoid kind of is all by itself. Along with kite, a kite's kind of in its own classification as well. There's nothing really under a kite, okay? So in order for something to be a kite, it has to have two pairs of congruent sides, okay? So I'm saying that this side and this side are the same length, and then this side and this side are the same length, but not all four are the exact same, all right? So these two tick mark, or these two lines that have one tick mark, it means, hey, those are the same, and then these two lines with the double tick marks means those are the same, but not every side is the same, okay? That is a kite. Now, a parallelogram has stuff underneath it. So if it's a parallelogram, it could also be a couple other things, right? Once again, these are all quadrilaterals. They all fall under, all right, are quadrilateral. So a parallelogram is also a quadrilateral, but it has a couple specific characteristics that make it a parallelogram. It has two pairs of parallel lines. So it's saying that this line and this line are parallel with my arrow indication, and then that this line and this line are parallel. So it's a little bit different than a trapezoid, where a trapezoid only had one pair of parallel lines, right? It's saying that I have two pairs. So my top and bottom are parallel, and my left and right are parallel. So if it's got two pair of parallel lines, all right, it is a parallelogram, okay? All right, now, underneath a parallelogram, it can also be a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square. A rectangle, opposite sides are congruent, and they have four right angles, okay? If it's a rhombus, all four sides are congruent, but not all the angles are 90 degrees, okay? They won't be all the same. So if all four sides are the same, but the angles are not 90, all right, it is a rhombus. And now for it to be a square, all four sides are congruent, and we have four right angles, okay? So, moving on to our examples, all right? So I'm asking, okay, classify this quadrilateral. What kind of quadrilateral is it, all right? Here I have this arrow and that arrow are indicating that these two lines are parallel, okay? These two lines are not parallel, all right? So I only have one pair of parallel lines. So what over here only has one pair of parallel lines, okay? That would be a trapezoid, all right? And now here, okay? Here I have my tick marks. It's indicating that, hey, all four of these sides are the exact same, but I do not know my angle measure, so I know they're not all 90 degrees, okay? So four sides congruent, but not 90-degree angle measures, that is a rhombus, okay? And when you are classifying these, you only need to give me the most specific example. Now, because it's a rhombus, it is also a parallelogram, which is also a quadrilateral. But you don't need to tell me rhombus, parallelogram, and quadrilateral. You just need to give me the most specific, okay? Now, if something is a trapezoid, it's also a quadrilateral. If something is a kite, it's also a quadrilateral. So a lot of these kind of have double meanings. If it's a parallelogram, it's also a quadrilateral, okay? Now, if it's a rectangle, that means it's also a parallelogram, and it's also a quadrilateral. If it's a rhombus, it's also a parallelogram, it's also a quadrilateral. And now a square can be a lot. If it's a square, it's a rectangle, which is also a parallelogram, which is also a quadrilateral, and a square is also a rhombus, which goes to parallelogram and quadrilateral as well. So if it's a square, it kind of plays a lot of different roles, all right? Now, with triangles, we talked about there was only 180 degrees that made up a triangle. With quadrilaterals, okay, they have 360 degrees. So the same idea in finding the missing angle, if we know 3 of the angles, right, we're able to find the 4th one, right? All we're gonna do is add up all 3 of the angles that we know. So I'm gonna take 70 plus 75 plus 115, and that's gonna give me 260 degrees. So I know I have 260 degrees being used up. Now I know there's 360 total degrees in a triangle, so to figure out what was left over out of the 360, and I'm using up 260, we just subtract, so x would equal 100 degrees. You just add up the 3 that you know and subtract it from, now in this case, 360, since there are 360 degrees in a quadrilateral, okay? Last example, okay, we're trying to find the angle x here, okay? So I know 3 of my degrees, all right? We know that this is a 90-degree angle measure, so I'm gonna take 81 plus 90 and add that onto 124, and that's gonna give me 295 degrees that are already being used up out of my total 360. So we just subtract that from 360, and x is 65 degrees, okay? So in your assignment, you're gonna have to be able to classify the quadrilateral, and you just need to give me one name, and that name is the most specific name that it is. And then finding the missing angle measure in a quadrilateral, okay? Homework is on page 296. We'll do 1 through 13.